Okay, so we will now go ahead and open this hearing on Tuesday, July the 25th, 2023. It's now 7:32 to call Littleton Conservation Commission to order. First off on our agenda is to approve the minutes from July 11th, which were submitted to the commissioners. So do we have any omissions or corrections to either of those 3 pages from the commission members?
They looked great as always.
With that said, do we have anyone that would like to make a motion to approve the July 11th, 2023 meeting notes?
I move to approve the July 11th, 2023 Conservation Commission minutes.
Thank you, Chase. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second
Okay.
by Kyle?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. Andrew?
Roll call votes. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Carl,
Carl Malberg, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbig, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Moving on to administrative discussions. Do we have any additions to the discussions which will come at the end? I have one, and it's in regards to waterfront DEP signage on anyone that has a DEP number. So that's just a discussion I'd like to add. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I had a question about the water department's project, King Street.
Okay, I will add that. Thank you. Water Department, King Street. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and get going. First on the administrative discussion, enforcement order 107 Mattawanakee Trail. Commission members were emailed the WPA Form 9 enforcement order. Anyone here to speak to that? So hold on one second. Peter. Amy, did you?
Yep, I was trying to promote Peter. Here he comes. And I believe Scott Goddard might be with him.
Yep. Thank you, Peter. You're now in as panelists. Go ahead.
Yeah, you have Scott Goddard on from Goddard Consulting, Wetlands Consultant. Okay. You also have Peter Scott, the owner, on, both here for this discussion. Hi,
Excellent.
Sarah. How are you doing? It's been a while
Good.
Since I've seen you.
Yep. Thank you, Scott. If you would like to, you or Peter, go ahead and take the floor. I don't know if you have any plans or anything or updates.
Yeah, no, I'll go briefly. You know, Peter can jump in if he'd like to.
Okay.
I was informed by Peter about the enforcement order, got photographs and visited the site. There was right at the edge of the road, there was some placement of some structural fill in order to allow a pull off for a vehicle where there's a slope. And Peter then stabilized that slope by placement of appropriate riprap on the top of it, sort of like 3/4 inch stone. And then the side slope was loamed, seeded, jute mat stabilized when he was aware that there was a potential problem. My assessment of the site condition is that perhaps this activity should have required, perhaps an RDA or something like that. It looks like he thought he was out of the buffer zone entirely, I believe. And it's possible that the bottom toe of this slope might have crept into the outer buffer zone a little bit, but not by a real lot. I think it's something that, if it came before the commission, we would have likely sought a negative determination of applicability. I'm in support of his stabilization efforts out there, and my recommendation is that we monitor and ensure that the site stabilizes, report back to the commission, and then seek a lifting of the enforcement order.
Thank you, Scott, for that outline. Scott, do you have any photographs that you can share with us or timeline for the stabilization?
I didn't.
That has occurred.
I'd have to dig my files. I wasn't prepared to share photographs of that. And maybe I can do that while we're talking. I wasn't ready to share photographs of that.
I could put up what was in the enforcement order, if you want.
Yeah. Amy, have you been to the site since the stabilization efforts were put up?
I've not been there since Thursday.
So let's go ahead, Scott, while you're digging for photos, let's go ahead and ask the commission members if they have any questions for you or for Peter, okay?
Yes.
Yep. Commissioners?
Yeah, Sarah, I had one question. Has the stabilized slope, I understand the toe of it might have been within the 100-foot buffer zone. Has more of that material flowed down the hill? Or is there any evidence of disturbance beyond the toe of the slope?
So in my observations of it, Chase, that it looks like there may have been an inconsequential amount of movement with some of this rain, nothing that's measurable, nothing that made it to the lake, nothing that's enough to clean up, just basically like small silt amounts that it could have been in the soil with all the rain. So I'd say, if this was compared to a construction site or something like that, it would be, in good shape. So nothing that I think is any actionable item, and nothing that reached the lake.
Okay, thank you. One other follow-up question for you, Scott. Given that the slope is now planted, stabilized, and so on, how long, I guess, what's your plan for inspection frequency there to make sure that that actually grows in and we don't wash stuff down the slope? And what did we plant it with? Do we need fertilizers, things like that? Because ultimately, given the slope there, a lot of that material could end up in the buffer zone.
No, that's a good question. So the placement of appropriate topsoil, which was put on there, has a good organic content, which acts as its own stabilizing. It's not like there's raw exposure at this point to any subsoil that contains all those silts and fines. So that acts as a good slope stabilizer in and of itself. But we can, do like weekly pictures until we get it nice and green and lush and stable there, and kind of put together that timeline to the commission. Peter, I know you're listening, if you have that recent set of photographs, could you just retext that to me, and so I can then share my screen and show that to the commission? I'm just having a hard time putting my finger on the pictures real quick.
And Scott, you referenced jute matting. Are there still, or are there presently any other erosion control measures such as silt fencing or wattles or anything?
So, Peter, I know you're listening. If you could chime into this conversation at this point, it would be good timing to do that. If you could unmute yourself, because after I looked at the site with the jute netting, I think you told me that you also added some erosion controls, the silt straw wattles to the toe of that slope, right?
Yes, I added hay bales across the bottom of it in the area where there was some runoff from the giant storm we had on Saturday or whatever. There's, I think there's 5 bales across it. You can see one sitting on the top. That's where one of from the big things. I'm not sure I have a picture of the ones I placed lower, or do I?
Yeah. So that's a current picture right there as of within the last, say, 24, 48 hours. So it's jute netting with straw on top of it. So there's really nothing substantive here to erode. This would be appropriate measures even if there was silty material under here, but there's topsoil under it. So I'm comfortable with the measures that have been taken to jump on top of this.
So, and Scott, just for the record, what day were you out there?
It's probably end of last week. So Thursday, Friday, something like that. I'd have to check my notes, but it was sometime end of last week. I have not been there in the last 24 hours, but I think, Peter took these pictures of the additional straw breakup since that.
Okay. So I think commissioners, after the rain that we literally just had this evening, I know we had started to talk about the monitorization of this and frequency. Scott, when do you think you would go back out and report back to the commission?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide, a weekly update to you guys, and just a quick email update and with an updated photograph
Yeah.
until the commission's satisfied of how it looks.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I do have one more question, Sarah, and that's related to the material that's in the fill. Scott, can you explain to us where this fill came from and why there's bricks and other debris in the fill?
That'd be a good question for Peter to answer, the source of the material and what's under there.
There's a brick, there's probably one or two at max. It came from when I did excavation for an addition. But it's all clean fill. The one, I don't know how that got in there, but there's probably one. Where did you see that there was concrete in it?
I just said bricks and other debris. It appears in the photos there's other debris. When you say it's clean fill, how do you know it's clean fill?
It came from the ground. Came from a residential area. I didn't take it from a hazardous waste site. It was somebody's home.
Okay. Other commissioners, questions, comments? So today's Tuesday. When would you like the first report, commissioners? Today's the 25th. We do have rain coming this week.
Maybe COB Friday.
Okay.
Supposed to get warmer over the weekend, right? So the rain.
So Scott, should we do that submit them on Fridays and?
Sure. We'll send you a letter report with a current photograph this Friday and once a week until we're all satisfied.
Okay. Amy's not in the office on Friday, but assuming that will be in Friday, so she'll be able to look at that on Monday.
Yeah, or just email it.
Okay. And then-
So I'm sorry, Sarah, both this enforcement order and 20 Cleva, neither of those the commission has ratified, so I have not sent it to DEP yet. So I don't know if the commission what action you wanted to do next in those terms.
I think the commission might be at a little bit of a disadvantage without having photographs of a little bit more of the site. But it's up to the commission what they would like to do in terms of ratification.
Do you want me to put up the pictures that were in the enforcement order, or?
I think we saw those
Yeah.
reported.
They're dated.
Commissioners, yeah, what would you like to do? Gonna be a long night if nobody talks.
I'm sorry, Sarah. What's the question? What's the question on the table? Sorry, I didn't totally follow that.
To ratify or not to ratify?
The enforcement order.
I'm comfortable ratifying this one.
So Amy, you need a motion?
I would.
Okay. If someone would like to make a motion to ratify the enforcement order,
Move to ratify the enforcement order for 107 Mattawanakie Trail,
dated July 20, 2023.
dated July 20, 2023. Yes, thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Maxill, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Chase,
Chase Kirby, guy.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
myself, I. It is unanimous.
Okay. So our next meetings are August 8th or August 22. With nothing kind of egregious with the weekly reports. Scott, should we come in for a meeting on the 22nd? Then you can tell us how things are stabilizing.
That sounds good.
Peter, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we will continue this with your confirmation to August 22nd.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next is Long Lake Neighborhood Invasive Species Management. Who's here to speak to that, please?
This is Anna Mayer to speak to that.
Thank you, Anna. Welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah, good to be back. Good to see familiar faces. All right, so you want me to share my screen?
That would be great.
Share screen. Okay. All right, this is the document, and there's some associated photos and images at the bottom. And I'm just giving a short update and then, you know, show some couple. Well, I don't have current photos of what we're doing, but I just have more of a description. So the Long Lake Association, starting in May or June, have been removing several types of invasives, including Japanese knotweed, multiflora rose, oriental bittersweet, and glossy buckthorn, garlic mustard, and a few cuts of honeysuckle and winged euonymus. And we've piled them on 20 pallets. And have stalks in varying states of decomposition. A couple of bags of garlic mustard were also brought to people's homes to dry. And this is mostly happening west of the beach. For some reason, I can't scroll down. Let me see here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so if I scroll down. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is an image of town-owned land. The green areas along the lake are conservation land, and you can see that there are small lots next to Beach Drive, to the east of Beach Drive, that are also conservation, and then it moves into Park and Rec land, which is in the blue. So we removed invasives from the western lots and eastern lots of Beach Drive and the wetland park. And even that, from the number of people that we had from the Long Lake Association, even that was a big job. And we have quite large piles that are next to Beach Drive and next to the beach. On the path to the beach from Beach Drive, it's to the north of that path, several pallets there for the most part, and one pallet to the south of that path. And so we've been piling them up there. We could theoretically just leave them to dry. We like to keep adding to these pallets at least to the end of this summer. But the question is, we need potentially a place to dispose of them, unless we should just keep them on the pallets for the following year. But I think in order to leave room for the next year's disposal or drying area, we need possibly a place to put these dried stalks at the end of the year. Now, the town also did some roadside mowing of knotweed on Beach Drive, which expanded our area of cutting, and we've continued to cut there after they also cut. We think we might have gone on to Park and Rec land, but we're not sure actually where the end point of that lot is on beach. And we have not talked to Park and Rec about that removal, so we're going to try to maybe back off in that lot. But anyway, okay, so moving on to disposal. So we're requesting a disposal location for these completely dried knotweed stalks and other debris, mostly multiflora rose and some buckthorn, glossy buckthorn. We've kept the reproducing tubers of the knotweed separate from the knotweed stalk. So the stalk should not have any source of reproducing material on them. We have done weekly cuts lasting several hours of multiple species, and then we also created educational signage and placed it next to the drying areas, and we've gotten lots of comments, a lot of people appreciating this effort. It does look much better, but it will have to be done multiple years to be effective. So we plan on continuing this effort, but we do, I think, need help. So we are looking at several options for that. So the next steps we're thinking of, our next meeting is on August 16th. So we would like a possible disposal location of dried stalks, and your desired process for that. Determination of any assistance for that would be helpful. A location to store maybe the empty pallets after the dried stuff is disposed of, or recommendations for storing those empty pallets for future use would be good. And also thoughts for future management efforts, possibly continued assistance by the town along Beach Drive would be much appreciated. That's a very heavy, large plot of knotweed. So we're thinking about joining forces with other weed warriors potentially, or scout troops, forming alliances with scout troops to keep this going. That is it. Let's see, the other pictures were more, we got, more pictures of town lots, which is about ½ acre each here along here. I think is conservation land, these three, and then these are also conservation lots. And it's this one, number 7, is where we really expanded the knotweed removal, but we're still not sure if it's beyond ½ an acre that we've cut. And I think the other ones is, this is possible disposal location, I think, that was looked at. And then that's in the wetland park. Beyond there's a little paver path in the wetland park. And I think that is it. Yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop sharing, or unless you want me to keep the pictures up.
I think that's good. Commissioners have any questions? Anna, how has all this rain been impacting? Not ideal for drying.
It hasn't been that ideal, but it's still been drying very well. At least the knotweed it crackles. I mean, it's very dry. So it's been effective still.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments? We all certainly support this effort.
Yeah, and I think people have been learning too. So we're going to continue keeping the signs up and educating people, because it is right next to the path to the beach, so it has a lot of exposure.
And I'm not so sure that we're able to really contribute that much guidance in terms of disposal. So I think
I'm thinking, the town land, maybe I'll just show the picture here. This town land, this lot here, next to Lake Drive, that's the big open lot that's used for parking during the Appleman, and such. That has an area that we were going to actually do some invasive removal. We have not yet, but that's a potential location, I thought, to place dried stalks. So wasn't sure about your feelings about that location.
That was one of the original locations.
Yep.
The original locations, I think, was in the back of the wetland park. That photo that the original, that location over here was where we're going to put the pallets, but we didn't put any pallets there. But I was thinking maybe instead of pallets, we could dispose of the material there.
Yeah, we had talked at one point about doing that back in there.
Oh, okay.
I guess I would want some assurances that the disposal and its proximity to the lake and the wetlands, that it's really, truly non-harmful down there if it ever reached that area. But Commissioners, any questions? We've got to keep moving.
And
Okay.
disposal is just a huge issue in general.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know it's better to keep it on site, so if we can, have it somewhere like that. I mean, how would you feel, at least for this year, putting it in the location of the back of this town land? And it's very flat. There isn't much direct flow to the lake from that location, and it doesn't flow directly into the wetland park. So I thought maybe that's nice and out of the way. We also don't have many seeds in our cuttings because we started before they went to seed and kept cutting. So we don't anticipate there'll be much spreading of invasives with these cuttings. And the knotweed cuttings also were before they even bloomed. So
I think my suggestion would be for the commissioners to do a drive-by and look at that site. And if we can table this for one more meeting and then kind of come back and look at this on August 8th.
okay.
It is also an area that already has invasives, so it's not a pristine area that would potentially get contaminated.
Mm.
Okay, good to know. Commissioners, how do you feel about that?
Yeah,
Sounds great.
good idea.
Okay. Anna,
Okay.
thank you for bringing that in, and hopefully we'll see you a representative on the 8th, okay?
All right.
They've done just an amazing amount of work. It's which is why suddenly disposal's a problem. So it's
True.
Great. Well, thank you
Thanks,
very
Anna.
much.
All right, thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and delay further discussions on those items and jump to our 7:45 public hearing, abbreviated notice of intent, resource area delineation, 95 Taylor Street. It does not have a mass DEP number presently. It's known as map U 40-8-0. Who is here to speak to that, please? 95 Taylor.
Letting in a few people, Mark Gallagher, Aiden Schlottman, and Dave Crossman, who's looks like that didn't take. Oh, there it goes.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there, Mark. If you want to introduce yourself, and the floor is all yours.
I'm sorry, you glitched. Did you say me? I'm sorry.
Yes, Mark, the hearing
Yep.
is all yours. If you want to introduce yourself to everyone and
Sure.
carry on.
Good evening. Mark Gallagher from Seal Harbor Companies. And we're here tonight to discuss 95 Taylor Street, a property that we would like to develop in Littleton. With me this evening is Aiden from Stamsky McNary and Dave Crossman, who did the wetlands work for us. And I am going to actually give the floor to Dave to discuss his work. I know he was out there with Amy, and they have done a recent site walk, and they should be able to lead us through the development and the ANRAD.
Dave, it's all yours. If you want to screen share, thank you.
I actually don't have any plans. I can screen share.
Aiden.
Go ahead, Aiden.
Okay, Dave, if you want to walk us through your findings.
So this is it looks like this used to be a pretty good sized hill, and the flat area with the small contour lines in the middle there, looks like the site was gravelled quite a number of years ago. And around the outer perimeter, the west and north, is the wetlands associated with Beaver Brook. So I started flagging in the near the southern property line, and went work my way around to the northern property line for the edge of BVW. And we had a site walk last week with Amy, and walked around the perimeter, and I don't believe there were any issues with the BVW boundary. And there is riverfront area associated with Beaver Brook So I think that's something that Amy wanted to discuss tonight.
So Aiden, just as a point of reference, when you submit plans, please make sure they're color coded.
Yeah, I do have both. Didn't know which one was be easier for you everyone to look at here. But
Start with the color coded, that would be great.
here's the red line here that shows what the riverfront, the mean annual high water line that us at Stamsky and McNary established. And we established that using satellite imagery from multiple years, kind of consolidated the image over the years.
But where is this on Taylor Street?
95 Taylor.
Yeah, I don't know where that is.
I'm sorry. Directly across the street is Bay State. Bay State Pipe.
So out of the depot, Carl, it would be on your right.
Correct.
So Bay State is on your left and then on your right.
Okay. Is there anything currently there?
There is a single family home which is historic to the front of the property that is in disrepair, and then there is a garage and a barn. We were told that this property was mined when they built Route 2 back in the day, and the gravel was stripped out of there, and at some point in time the family that lives there said that this was a strawberry farm as well.
Is that those buildings going to be removed?
The building would be removed.
Yeah, they went through the Historic Society already, Carl. For some reason, they thought it wasn't worthy. Their majority, at least, thought it wasn't worthy of saving.
And it's going to be single family houses?
I'm sorry?
2 single family homes?
The development plan currently we have looked at is an open space plan, Carl, and we propose 5 units on the property. The property is 7 to 9 acres in totality. A good deal of that 2 to 3 acres of it is in the Beaver Brook area. And as Dave said, the residual from the mining is a berm that goes from the southern part of the property, like a horseshoe all the way around to the far right-hand side where the rest of the residential homes go down towards the depot.
Do you know historically, Mark, when the mining occurred and when the berm was built?
I don't think the berm was built necessarily. I think the berm was the residual that was left there.
Okay.
From when they mined, from what we can tell. I don't know the era of when Route 2 was built, but the family that lives there said that they mined it during the construction of Route 2. It's all gravel.
So can you describe what's there for vegetation right now? Because if there's, you're just talking
the vegetation has regrown. It's been quite some time, and there is a mixture of hardwoods and pines on the property, conifers and deciduous trees. There is obviously wetlands plants along the edge of the vegetated wetland along Beaver Brook, but at the toe of the slope it changes because the slope rises up fairly quickly and fairly high. So there's an extremely large berm that protects the area where we would be developing from Beaver Brook. So our goal is to develop about 30 to 40% of the overall acreage towards Taylor Street, well inside the berm, and to stay away from all of the resources.
Is the land currently forested?
Yes, it is forested.
That's what I was trying to get to from.
Yep.
I know you don't have your plans done yet for the homes, but
We do, we have Aiden, why don't you bring up the development plan, the conceptual and color that Sarah was requesting you bring up?
Sure. I would like to steer it back to, because this is an ANRAD, so we are for mostly the confirmation of these flaggings, not for the permitting of the development itself currendly.
Aiden, they're looking.
Right, and Aiden, we appreciate that. So, but going forward, we rather have more information than less. We're obviously not going to hold you to those footprints. But if you want to get a conceptual look, I think it's best to show what Mark has requested.
Yeah, we want to share everything with you. When we spoke about this several weeks ago, you had asked for a plan before we could have a conversation. We want to get your input. So this colored plan is a conceptual plan that we've been worked on after the wetlands were delineated, and it shows the Beaver Brook. It shows the area of the resources, the 100 and the 200 foot, the 100-foot setback, as well as the 200 foot from the river, based upon the work that Stampskin Canary did. And they did a significant amount of work on where the actual river was, or the brook was, in order to be able to establish those lines. So this would be a very short road, 325 feet off of Taylor. That would come in. It would not be a town road because we'd be going with open space. And there would be 5 houses clustered close to the road and close to Taylor, away from all of the resources. That was my major goal from the beginning in developing this property, was to try to stay away from the resources as far as I could humanly possibly do.
About the septic.
Yep, commissioners, questions?
So for, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Carl. I was going to change topics a little bit.
No, well, as I was saying, it's part of the, since we're getting into the plans a little bit, and I appreciate you bringing this up. It gives me a better feel for what's going on. That's important.
Yep, I agree.
I guess the other thing I'd like to see on here are the trees that are going to be removed in order to put 5 houses in the road in, and identified by species and DBH. But we could do it above a certain.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and that'll give Aiden and also Dave something to work towards as well.
Well, I can address some of that. The area where they're coming in off Taylor Street is all lawn until you get to those first 2 houses. And then there's a small berm that rises up through there, and that's probably where most of the tree cutting would go, because that around the berm is the larger pines and oaks. But once you get into the area that's mined, there's not that many large trees. It's mostly autumn olive that has come in because they just left it as bare gravel. So it's shrubs in this low area. The forested area is on the berm that rises up out of there and then slopes back down to the brook. So I don't think, compared to the number of trees that are on the property, there's not going to be that much tree cutting on the site.
Amy, question for you. Would you liken it to the ground cover on Monarch?
Oh, it's much more vegetated than Monarch.
Okay, thank you.
It is inside the gravel area. You know, it might be a little scraggly pine mostly, and outside of the berm, it's mature wood. It's, except for the house.
Okay.
It's basically mature, stable.
I mean, an aerial shows it completely tree covered except for where the house is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. If we can, Aiden, now go back to the delineation, that would be appreciated.
Sarah, is it okay if I jump in right now? I've got a couple questions about the delineation. Aiden, you said that you delineated the mean high water mark with satellite imagery. Could you be more specific there with your method, years, seasons that you looked at, et cetera, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, there's a lot of, all throughout in here is pretty wet. So getting out there is not the easiest. So basically what we did, and I do have this to show you, we basically used our survey and our topography that we made and used Google Earth itself and basically overlaid Google Earth with the actual our topography, and then we overlaid it with this. And then basically you can kind of see that the brook itself is pretty dominant. You can see that it pokes out there. And that's basically what we said for the mean annual high water. We use multiple years. As you can see that the brook, it slightly sways from year to year, but it's typically about the same throughout all the years. And you can see the date at the bottom here as I'm scrolling through. It pretty much stays the same. So basically what we did is, because we did notice that it does fluctuate back and forth slightly, we basically just took the most conservative of all of the images, and we used that for our mean annual high water line.
I mean, Aiden, with all due respect, the image you have up right now shows a much wider river than you've got for a mean high water mark. I guess here's my concern. I'm not trying to trap you. I just want to put it on the table. I don't think satellite imagery is sufficient. 310 CMR, the definition of a high water mark, references riverine features. There's no reference to determining it based on seasonal or satellite imagery. And I think we need to do a much more thorough job of determining it based on the geomorphology of the river, not based on satellite imagery, as evidenced by this particular image, which shows a different river than what you've mapped. And so I'm not willing to approve this ANRAD until we've got a much more robust definition of seasonal high water in the riverfront area.
And Aiden, I think you have to know that this commission has had developers withdraw at the last minute because their use of technology similar to yours was grossly inaccurate in the field. So we do this as a kind of fair warning for lack of accuracy at times.
What is the standard that the commission accepts for the location or determining the mean high water mark?
Mark, I'd point you to the definitions in the Wetland Protection Act, which reference bank elevations and geomorphological observations that may need to be supplemented with some evaluation of the hydrology. But those characteristics are a much better representation than if we've got satellite images over 10 or 20 years that represents the river at just a handful of points in time that don't necessarily represent where the river is. So I think if you go to those definitions, you'll find that there's a lot more meat to them than what I'm giving you, but that's what I would be looking for.
Okay. Thank you for the direction.
Other commissioners have any questions, comments? Obviously, we would want to go out on the site as well.
There may or may not be people in the audience who have a comment. I don't know if they're just listening. There's a lot of names I don't recognize. I will also say I went back just to double check past determinations the commission has made, and downstream to 76 Whitcomb in 2019, they did show the mean annual high water well away from the central stream course, and then upstream at 30 Porter in 2015, the mean annual high water again was well away from the central line of the stream course.
Okay. So just for the people that are listening who are designated attendees, if you do have any questions, you can just raise your hand. We recognize that you're just listening at this time. Okay. Other commissioners have any questions for Mark or Aiden or Dave while they're joining us?
Sarah, can I build on that point?
Yes.
One more layer. So the wetland delineation piece, I'm Amy, I don't want to disparage your capabilities at all, but I'm very comfortable where Amy's able to sort of go back and forth with a project proponent there. I wonder if we should think about the mean annual high water mark, getting a third-party review on that, or at least put that on the table as something that we might be interested in, depending on what the outcome is.
Commissioners, what are your thoughts on that, on Chase's ask?
Yeah, that's where I was going to with what Chase just said, because with that 200-year, the riverfront area in the 100-foot buffer kind of mirroring each other, following each other for a little bit. If what Amy said about past projects changes that riverfront, then
Carl and Andrew and Michael, are you in support of that request?
Yeah, it does sound like an appropriate time to get another opinion.
Yeah, I'm in support.
Sure. I'd rather have it at the beginning than at the end when everyone, and Mark, after you spend a lot more money. So better to do it early.
Yeah, we all know that river floods, and
Okay.
I'd like to see.
So would you want to set up a site walk, double check things, and then consider third-party review just for the mean annual high if the commission feels comfortable with the BVW, which is pretty straightforward, and the floodplain piece of it, which is right off of FEMA.
What order of go would the commissioners like?
So Amy, you've walked the wetland line?
Yeah, the wetland line, you can tell from the topo, it's pretty clear cut. My only very minor comment was is north up. Yeah, at the northern end, unfortunately, it does go into someone else's property. Is just double checking where that last flag is before it starts going north. It almost looked like it might go a little bit east before it goes north. Not going to make a huge difference.
Dave, you concur with that?
There's a little low air, there's a valley that comes out of that property down in there, and it's possible that they may swing slightly to the east before it heads north, but I don't think it would make much of a difference as far as the buffer zone coming onto the property. We didn't go out there just because the person who lives there has a pretty clear view. They've opened it up all the way down through there, and I prefer not to meet the police when I come back to my truck.
Which is why, beside the fact that it's also a lot of vines down in there that we didn't go down there.
Yeah.
But we're very close on that. We're pretty far apart on the mean annual high water.
Okay. So coming back to the original question, do we want to do a site walk now or later after we have had peer review on the mean high water mark?
I think I'd prefer to wait so we can see what the staked high water mark is.
Okay. That sounds good. Ed, I see that you had your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, the plan is to put 5 homes. There's a lot of wetlands around here, which means you're going to have a lot of septic and theoretically lawn and, with respect to fertilizers and so forth. It feels like, how are you going to get the 5 homes in the area without, while ensuring that the wetlands won't be contaminated through either the fertilizer and chemicals, or more likely the septic?
Right. Mark, would you like to try and address that?
At this point, we're looking at going with a single septic source as opposed to multiple septic sources. And we're going to be using as much of the new technology as we can to make the system as efficient and small. Our goal is to develop less than 30% of the total site. So I think we're being extremely conservative and getting as far away from the resources as we can. In terms of the mean high water table, I think, and I understand that the request for the peer review, but it just in open discussion, I think that the most travel it's going to be is 5 feet, because it's not going to exceed the base of the berm. So we can get the third-party review, of course, and move forward with that as you've requested. But I don't think it's going to have a lot of impact, because that berm is so significant. You have the resources on one side, and it's a very thick berm. And we're going to be, to answer the gentleman's question, we're really clustering to the front. 300 feet off the road is a minimum amount. And we're going with a invasive road. It's not large. It's very conservative and small, and our control of our drainage will be small as well. So I think, we could probably impute some things about fertilizing as we have on other projects, Sarah.
Yeah. Okay.
Nitrogen and stuff to really protect the resources here and make sure there's no leaching.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark, so the reason I pick out the mean high annual watermark for the river is because that 200-foot riverfront area does push across the berm and is a jurisdictional area. But for that, it would almost look like you're trying to avoid talking to us on this by staying out of our resource areas.
That was a pretty good deduction. We are trying to stay far away.
So that's really my interest in it, because it does reach into the area that you are trying to, I think, develop a little more, frankly, than the 100-foot buffer zone does in some instances.
It does, but I mean, I still think at the end of the day, it's going to be fairly diminuous impact. I mean, you've got your wetlands line that's been, I think Amy and Dave have more or less agreed is pretty tight. There's got to be some area where there is floodplain, and there's going to be some area which are uplands. And, this Beaver Brook, I understand is a brook, but it acts more like a pond in a lot of instances, where I don't think that it has a lot of flow. And we've had an extremely wet year. So I'm not, we discussed the third party review. Amy had talked about it with us when Dave and her were out there. So, if it's a necessity, it is, and however it impacts it, we're trying our very best to stay as far away from these resources as we can.
Okay, so going forward, it sounds like to do the due diligence for that, we would request that of you, Mark. Amy, where would we like to go now moving forward?
And I'm sorry, I didn't get clear in my head. Do you want the third party review before you guys site walk or after you guys site walk?
Correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners, but I think that's what I'm hearing.
No, that was an either or.
Based on your recommendation, Amy, that you and, Dave may have to tweak one flag at the end, that the berm is substantial.
So
I'm waiting for feedback from the commissioner.
I had suggested we wait.
Okay.
Wait.
Meaning that we wait to do the site walk.
Yeah.
So line up the third party review for the mean annual high.
Yes.
Correct. Kyle, Michael, Andrew, good?
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I would also, if it's possible, before that site walk, if you could flag the trees that are being removed.
Okay.
And we could set a certain DBH.
We really can't. We can't accomplish that until you determine the mean high water marker, because we may have to, as one of the other commissioners brought forward, we may have to adjust based upon the riverfront. We may have to adjust the location of those buildings and the roadway to meet the criteria of the riverfront.
Sure, and I think
it's not wetlands.
And I think that's fine. So, but by Carl requesting that, that's something that we would encourage a placeholder for information to be given to us at a later date. So while you're going through this process, know that at some point we're going to want to know the trees later on.
Within the resource buffer or outside of the resource buffer, because that's a kind of a reach with this property.
Inside
the resource buffer.
Correct.
Okay, no problems. You mean areas where I just want to be clear, areas we're going to clear trees inside the 100 buffer. Yep. Okay. Yep. No problem.
Or mark the riverfront area, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Within resource areas that are jurisdictional.
I understand both. Yes. Okay. I understand. Yep. I'm clear. Yep.
So
thank you.
We meet on August 8th and August 22nd.
I think it's a matter of when you can get out for your site walk, right? We'll hire the third party as soon as you complete your site work and your site walk and you're satisfied with the wetlands delineation line.
It's the other way around. So how does the commission want to proceed with picking someone to do the peer review?
I mean, it may be more efficient for the project proponent if we identify that now and they can be involved early on in the process. I'm not opposed to that. We can do it very linearly, right? That Mark and his team can submit it and then we can have our peer review look at it. That adds weeks onto it, or we could hire someone sooner. And I'd just assume hire someone sooner so we can sort of move this forward.
I agree.
And what we've done in the past is, it's been a while, but I think the latest peer reviews have actually contracted directly with the applicant, but we can do it either way.
No problem.
We could give you a few names because I think the scope is going to be pretty straightforward.
Yep. Sure. If you want to provide us names, we'll select a peer review and contract with them to work with you immediately.
Okay. So commissioners,
Hang on one second. Can we pause on? I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea that the project proponent would be hiring their own peer review.
No, I'm going to hire somebody
yeah, no, Chase, Amy's going to give him a list of ones that we to date feel comfortable with the support of, if commissioners have any other things that they would like to throw into the hat, you can send that to Amy. Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay.
That was my understanding. They're paying for it, but we're giving them the names that we would prefer to use.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm a little dense. I got it.
Now, off the top of my head, I would recommend either Oxbow, BSC, Chuck Karen. I mean, there's other people out there. Mark, you probably have names.
Well, we've worked with Oxbow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll have time, but I mean,
that's why I figured
whatever names you provide, we'll find somebody to work with you.
Amy, why don't commissioners, if you have any thoughts, send them tonight or straight off in the morning so she can get that to Mark tomorrow. Okay. Sure. So coming back to the continuation of August 8th or 22nd, what does the applicant request?
Will you be doing the site walk between now and the 8th?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay. Then why don't we put it off till the second meeting?
Okay.
Which gives you opportunity to get out there and do your site walk before.
And I think if you could let Amy know ahead of time, we'll put it as a discussion to know where you are in the timeline of the peer review.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Amy, does that make sense? So it would be a discussion, an update from 95 Taylor for the August 8th, and just purely an update, Mark, that you can let her know who you've
selected. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for this evening. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, closing that. Now we're going to open up our 8 o'clock continued public hearing notice of intent 17 Mattawanakee, known as Mass DEP 204-0985. Who is here to speak to that?
I think Kevin should be coming in, I think.
Yep, Kevin.
Here he comes.
And Amy, this was, we were waiting on a DEP number?
We had been waiting on the DEP number, and frankly, it also got left off by mistake on the last agenda. Because I had submitted the revised plans with the planting plan on it, which Kevin can show you.
Okay. Yep. All right. Are we ready?
We are ready.
All yours, Kevin.
All right. I'm Kevin Ritchie from Civil Solutions. I'm here on behalf of Whiteacre Properties, owners of 17 Mattawanakee Trail. It's currently got a failed septic system, which we've been in before the commission a couple of times to try to get an order of conditions so that we can replace the failed system. We did meet out there with Amy and created a planting plan. I think Amy and I were in agreement with what we've proposed. First meeting, we had a few items that you asked us to address, which we did address prior to changing the planting plan. We've extended the hay bale lines. We've got a DEP file number. We do show a stockpile location. And we've added the removal of some debris by hand. There's a couple of piles of brush and old wood in the back of the lot that we've gonna remove by hand.
And Amy did share with us your revised plan.
Okay.
Commissioners, any question on 17 Mattawanaki? Amy, are you comfortable now?
I am, yes.
Okay.
You looking for a
There
motion,
had
sir?
been discussion about a berm, but the way it's again, like one of the last house, the lay of the land, the berm might be holding the water back.
Yep. Okay. Yes, Chase, go ahead.
Then I'll move to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for 17 Mattawanaki, Mass DP file number 2040985.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Andrew?
Roll call vote. Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Carl,
Tom Melver guy.
Chase,
Chase Gerbig, aye.
myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you for your patience, Kevin. Thank you for coming back in. Good luck.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's now 8:33, opening the 8:15 continued public hearing notice of intent 18 Ivy Road, known as Mass DEP 204-0986, replacement of a failed septic system.
Good evening. My name is Dan Wolf from David Ross Associates. And if you recall from our last meeting, we are upgrading the septic system in the form of a holding tank. The property at 18 Ivy Road is a very small 10,000 square foot lot surrounded by a wetland area. The plan, Amy, I'm wondering, are you able to put that on the screen?
I do not have it. Let me see if I can get to it.
Okay, the main question, or actually there were two issues from the last meeting. One was we didn't have the DEP number yet, which, as you just announced, it has been issued. The second question was more of a construction question, which I thought was an excellent question. And that is, how are we going to deal with dewatering the excavation for this tank? I've had a number of conversations with different contractors trying to find what appears to be the best solution. And what I've done as a result of those conversations is I've actually looked around and found a different size tank that did not go as deep, which is going to help with the excavation. So it did add a little length to the tank. That length was put further away from the wetlands. But in addition to that, I've added a number of notes to the plan to outline the construction effort, which should include a trench box. And what that will do is help to stabilize the sidewalls of the excavation itself, as well as to hold back some of the groundwater that we know is going to infiltrate into that hole during construction. Once the trench box is set and the excavation continues, a pump will be put in the excavation to dewater, and that is going to be pumped away from the wetland area, which would be on the left side of the plan. And it would be pumped toward an existing catch basin, which is in front of the property. What I've shown there on this revised plan is erosion control being placed around the catch basin itself, as well as an encasement of erosion control in a stone filter bed, so that water will flow through the stone and the erosion control prior to getting to the catch basin. And just for your information, that catch basin does have a sump in it to collect any debris, and that continues down toward Lake Ave, I think it is, in which it deposits into another catch basin with a sump, and then further down toward a detention basin at the end of Lake. So there's a number of opportunities there, but most of, if not all of the debris or silt in the water will be filtered out right here in front of the property. So that was the question. And like I said, I've talked to a number of different contractors trying to get the best of all ideas, and that's what we've come up with. So if I can answer any of your questions, I'd be happy to.
Dan, is the size of the tank still 4,000 gallons? You made reference that the configuration of it changes, but is it still 4,000?
It is still 4,000. And like I said, the tank lengthened toward Ivy Road a little bit from the last time, but the depth is not as much. So we don't have to dig as much into the groundwater table during construction.
So the first catch basin is off property and on the town road?
Correct.
And so you're going to have silt sacks in those?
Yes.
And do we need approval of the town to do such?
Usually you need NIPTs to do that, don't you? That's,
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's, I wasn't going to go too far.
I thought, okay, this is your world, guys.
Yeah, this is,
That's also private road, Ivy.
yeah, but it doesn't discharge to private like that. We're talking, that's going to discharge into public water at some point.
Well, the only alternative is discharging into the intermittent stream at the back of the property.
No, that's
That's
not
the same
true at all.
problem.
That's not true.
Yeah, it's very easy to containerize water and ship it offsite for disposal.
This lot is down by the lake, like a couple houses back. Trying to picture where this is.
Yes, I believe this Ivy Road, I believe, is, you've got, I wish I could read that. You've got Lake, Juniper, and Ivy, and those roads as you get further from the lake itself.
It's close to the other lot that is where the house being put on. Is that right?
That is right. To the right of my plan, the bottom right of my plan,
Yeah.
you would then cross the main road. And once you cross the main road, you're at that other site that is currently under construction.
Okay. So, yeah, you're definitely going to be dealing with a lot of water. There's no question there.
What's their concern? If you're taking water out of the ground, putting it right back into the same ground, why is that a concern?
Well, this is a failed septic system on this site.
So
Yes.
it's contaminated water is what you're thinking? Okay.
I would not say that. The septic.
I'm asking.
Okay, I don't believe that we're going to be dealing with contaminated water. No. The existing septic system is on the other side of the house. And believe it or not, the actual system is in Ivy Road. So up near the V of Ivy, right there, there is something in the ground there. So we're still a distance away from that.
And that old system, remind us, Dan, is going to be uncovered and decommissioned?
Yes.
Well, is the existing house going to stay?
Yes, it's an absolutely beautiful house.
Okay. A beautiful house with a field septic.
Can we go back to the idea that the septic system is going to be decommissioned? That's not shown anywhere on these plans. Well,
The existing septic tank is.
yeah, but the existing system by the V and Ivy is going to be decommissioned. When you say that, what do you mean?
What I meant was the existing tank that is shown on the plan would be opened
Just the
up.
existing tank. Okay.
Existing tank, yes. If you want me to go exploring to find out what might be under the ground, I didn't intend on doing that. But the tank itself should be pumped out and backfilled or crushed in place.
Can you please put your cursor over the existing system?
Well,
It's my cursor,
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Amy.
which is why I'm stumbling around.
Amy, just to the left there is a little clouded out area labeled existing septic tank. No, go up under the walkway.
By the deck.
Right in there is the existing tank.
Where's the system go from there?
And it goes out into Ivy Road somewhere, is what I've been told. No one has produced any plans showing that, but that's what I was told, that there's something out there in Ivy Road.
And
when
that
I
is just
was on
abandoned in place.
Correct.
Don't we have capabilities of like snaking it or just at least knowing where it stops and like, or just a camera to know the unknown?
That could certainly be done if you need to know it.
I mean, I guess my biggest concern here, Sarah, is if we don't know where it is, anecdotally, if it's where we think it is, that's great. But when I look at the layout of the house, it sure looks like where the proposed tank is going is a much better location for the septic field. Do we have any test borings or anything like that in the footprint of the new proposed tank to confirm that we're not digging in the old septic field?
I did a test hole on November 7th, 2022 that led to this plan. The information on that test hole is currently on the screen on the right side. We dug down about 2 feet through topsoil and subsoil, found a layer of coarse sand and gravel, overlaying another layer of fine sand down to about 8 feet. 7.5 feet.
And how far down does that tank go?
That tank has a depth of 78 inches, so 6.5 foot tall.
Okay, thank you.
If you open the cover of the tank, you should be able to tell which way the pipe goes toward the leaching field, whether it's out toward Ivy or back toward where you're gonna put the new tank. That should be pretty easy to determine.
Right.
So we kind of jumped around a little bit. Let's go back to, so we can keep track here. Let's go back to the discussion of dewatering, and then we can come forward to the discussion of the septic system.
Yeah, sorry about that, Sarah. That was my fault.
No, that's okay. So presently, the applicant would like to dewater off-site into Ivy Road and then carry on from there.
That is the proposal, yes. And as it was pointed out, Ivy Road is a private road. It essentially is a driveway serving this house as well as the house across Ivy Road. I think some of the members are familiar with Roddy Ham's house across the street.
So when we say private, this is not a paper road that the town still has some ownership of.
The town, yeah, there, how to put this? I'm actually never sure where these paper roads, it is not shown as owned by anybody other than the town.
Right.
And I believe, and don't cite me on this, that means that the owners on either side can work halfway into that paper road. They can't put like a house on it.
Right.
Because that's what,
right. We just did
over
this
22
years
Woodland.
ago. Yes. Yeah. That's my, well, I don't know if that was confirmed, but that was my understanding.
Yeah.
There's two issues with this, though. One is I don't believe that discharging on-site, construction dewatering and discharging on-site is allowed without a NIPD's permit, even if Ivy Road is part of on-site. That's number one. Number two, my understanding from what I heard tonight is that that catch basin then discharges on Lake Road, which is unambiguously town infrastructure. So the way I see it, we need both a dewatering and remediation general permit under the NIPD's program, and we need a town permit from from the DPW to allow this proposal to go forward?
So we have had it, and Dan, this exercise is as much for you as it is for the commissioners. We have had other dewatering sites that have been somewhat inferior in terms of shallow water, that they've had to just pump right into a truck and haul it off. We've done socks, we've done all those other things, but it seems in terms of keeping this rolling that the original suggestion of pumping it and hauling it off would be a smoother process, and I would think also more economical, but I'm not, it's obviously not my world. So, but
Well, I did have conversations in regard to pumping it off, and
Okay.
the unknown in that whole situation is during this excavation, how much water are we really going to collect? And is that an exercise in simply pumping down the entire neighborhood? As I mentioned, the test hole that showed there was coarse sand and gravel, meaning that as soon as you pump a gallon out, another gallon may be coming in. The trench box idea came as a result of that, in the fact that the trench box would certainly limit the amount of water coming in so that we essentially were not pumping the neighborhood down. So we're simply trying to dig one hole to sink this tank in, and then everything would be backfilled. We're hoping it's a very short operation time-wise.
Do you have buoyancy calculations to support that this tank isn't going to float up on you?
Yes, I do. It's on the
plan too, right?
yeah, I think we asked that previously.
It's the top center of the plan. The calculations are there. So back to the issue of trucking the water away. The concern was no one can really quantify how much water that needs to be pumped away.
Yeah, I mean, that goes for how much water you're potentially pumping into a catch basin too, right? Like it goes both ways. Like
it's a longer drawn out process to get the water up into a truck. And again, it's a matter of timing. We wanted everything to be in place, start pumping and lay in the tank and quickly backfill. So again, I admit, all I'm saying is that I had collected information from contractors who have done similar operations, and this was overwhelmingly the operation of choice that would make that the quickest transition to get that tank into the ground.
Yeah, and as a layperson with the NIFTY report, do you not have to submit a ballpark of calculations of what the expected volume might be that's leaving the site?
If this is going toward a NIPD's permit, then I don't see that as a viable solution.
Okay.
I didn't think we'd be turning to this. We've got a homeowner who has a failing system. We are all trying to do the best we can here, and it's simply trying to open up a hole as quickly as possible and sink this new tank so that any pollution that this current system puts into the ground would be no more. So I think we all are trying to get to the quickest and easiest solution.
Yeah, like we agree.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. And unfortunately, I don't think pumping into a catch basin is the easiest. What's the concern with recharging into the ground? Say from Ivy Road to the shed, you dig some sort of a 3 foot wide, 2 foot deep trench and pump it into that. You're telling me you're only excavating for 6 hours or something like that, right?
The issue is and I appreciate your thought process because that's where I started, but we have modeling showing it 16 inches, meaning that the infiltration pit or whatever you put there, as soon as you dig more than 2 feet down, is going to be in the groundwater table, and you're getting no benefit or recharge from that.
Right.
Okay. Well, all right.
The same problem.
Maybe this is a naive question, but is it possible to calculate, how much water you would have to move worst case when you're excavating the hole for the tank, and just simply be prepared to pump it out to a truck in that worst case, if it's one truck or three trucks waiting?
I can't imagine that there'd be any accuracy in any calculations. Because again, if we have coarse sand and gravel within let me exaggerate the point, within a mile radius of this, and we've got groundwater, at the time that I dug the test hole in November, we had groundwater at 41 inches. That hole is just going to continuously fill with water.
Amy, do we have data from any of the adjacent properties?
On groundwater?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask another relatively naive question, Dan. Is there any way of installing this in the wet?
Installing it what?
In the wet. Dig your 7-foot deep hole, let the water do it, or are you assuming that the materials are too coarse that they're going to cave in on you?
Yeah, they would be caving in all the time, and the tank should be sitting on a good bed of.
So you have to put fill in the bottom of this excavation, right?
Right.
Okay.
And there's no, I think this is the evening that all I've heard is naive questions from everyone. This is not usually what you hear from us, and this is not a candidate to raise that tank, like to raise the elevation.
To raise the elevation, we would also have to raise the house.
Okay.
We've got minimum pitch from the house to the tank.
Yeah, I didn't know with pump chambers, if there's a way to pump up into that tank. Thank you. Sorry.
And Sarah, I appreciate your comment about the naive questions. This is unique.
It is.
When I first looked at it, I thought, oh, this will be an open and shut case, but the issues that have hit me on this one are unique. You don't see this all the time. So I appreciate the questions.
Yeah.
It's
hard because it is so low in that water table.
Right. I am coming to the conclusion that the commission feels that I should be trucking this off site. So perhaps I have a few more questions for contractors, as well as some people that could haul the water away. And
so Dan, so we meet on August 8th and August 22nd. What would you like to do? Would you like to have this extended to the 8th in hopes that we can really come up with a viable solution then?
Yes.
Sarah, can I offer one more? I know.
Sure.
Sorry to keep going
I
back.
think we're all trying to help.
I'm trying to work with him here.
Yep.
So the quantity of water is unknown, right? We understand that. So what about where I recommended that infiltration trench? You bring in a 10,000 gallon frac tank. That's what you pump into. If you only pump out 500 gallons, great. Then you can discharge that back into the ground while you're doing your backfilling or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If it ends up being 10,000 gallons, then you pump that offsite. Is that something?
It would be more economical, I think.
Yeah, Chase, you're kind of in this ballpark of things. What are you thinking to keep this moving?
I mean, honestly, my 2 cents is a vac truck on site will give you almost as much capacity as a frac tank, and then you don't have to deal with the staging. My gut, I haven't run any of the drawdown calculations or anything like that, but it's not a particularly deep hole. I've done much bigger excavations without coming anywhere near filling up even a single vac tank or vac truck tank.
Yeah, I was just trying to limit costs in keeping with pumps and.
But that gives Dan another track as well while he's looking at resources.
I will certainly ask some of those questions, but to answer your question, Sarah, I would like to be continued then to the 8th as soon as possible.
Yep.
And again, the reason I am pushing for this to try to wrap up is the most ideal time of the year to do this is obviously now.
Oh, absolutely.
Or sometime in August,
Oh, yeah,
September.
it's not now, but yeah.
Now is not the time, but certainly before we get into groundwater rising throughout the months of October, November, December.
And I think the commission very much appreciates that. So if you can bring back to us, hopefully a viable solution for the 8th, I think what you're hearing is that the commission is very much trying to work with you and the applicant to make this happen. So we will look forward to seeing you on the 8th with some answers.
Okay, and is the commission asking for more information on the whereabouts and type of system that's somewhere underground? Is that something that you need to know?
I'm satisfied with the information that you gave us.
Commissioners, everybody else good?
It's otherwise just going to be made inert.
Correct.
It'll be cut off from the existing tank and just remain where it is.
Correct. Yep. Okay.
If,
I think that's your answer.
if in my
Let it lay
conversations
peacefully.
I do come up with anything more, I will certainly let you know.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Okay, it is now 8:57. We'd like to open the 8:30 continued public hearing request for amended order of condition, Lake Mattawanakee drawdown, mechanical vegetation harvesting known as Mass DEP 204-0872.
Uh-oh.
Who is here to speak?
I'm trying to Dave Barr. It looks like he's in here twice though.
Dave, yep, there you go. So
Here he comes.
you can move both over if you have to.
Yep, for some reason I need to click several times before it takes.
Yep. Okay. Dave, when you are, okay, we can see you and hear you, Dave. It's all yours. Go ahead.
So we presented our request at the last meeting, and we were waiting to hear from the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program before we could move forward. We heard from them yesterday, and they were agreeable with the request. They had a couple of conditions, which seem like there shouldn't be a problem.
Amy, are those the conditions that you made note of?
The conditions I forwarded on to you were actually
Yeah.
the draft Westford conditions.
Oh,
And the ones I just did a few hours ago was my adaptation of everything into what had been Littleton's original order of conditions.
that's the one that references Corey Godfrey Clean Lakes Committee?
Yes. And the natural heritage conditions were the eco harvester should not be used in map priority or estimated habitat between September 1 and October 15th of any year. And the harvested materials shall be staged and disposed of or composted outside of all wetland resource areas associated with the pond. So that's the natural heritage ones.
Yep. If we're going to go with that one on the last page, there's an edit on C13. Summary report of the drawdown must be submitted. It makes reference to 2019. So if we can change that date. And then I also think the National Heritage should be in that addendum for C13 as well.
Yeah, I think maybe what I'll do is I can just delete C13.
Yep.
And then C14 would be the reports every year by October 1.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It is. I wouldn't delete 15, 16, or 17 until you make sure they're in there.
No, I would keep those. I would just knock off the old C13.
Okay, perfect. I got you. Okay. I know that time is of the essence, and I would like to make a motion that we accept this.
I'll second that.
Are you gonna be able to do it this year, Dave? Do you think?
Yeah, I talked to Matt Silverman last day or two. He thought that we could get the vendors back. He had a quote, which I think includes the cost of them coming back, and it was still within the budget that we had gotten from the water department, and which I think Westford can also support. My understanding is we need to wait, is it 10 calendar days after the order of conditions is issued?
That is the appeal period.
Right, 10 calendar days.
Yes.
Okay,
No, it would be what, 14? It'd be 5 plus 5 working days.
10 business days.
10 business days. If it's more than 10, then you go to calendar. So it's 10 business days.
So the motion has been made and seconded.
Roll call votes.
Wait, I
Carl,
missed that. I'm sorry. Who moved and seconded? Sorry.
I did, and Chase seconded.
Thank you.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Carpenter guy.
myself, I. It's unanimous.
Dave, if you could just keep us in the loop, you recognize that in the special order of conditions, you have to let us know hopefully a week before so you can have a pre-meeting, but just to keep it rolling, just keep us involved if you can get it done.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you and good luck.
Thanks a lot for your help.
Yep. Okay, what I'd like to do is go back to administrative discussions. And Ed, I thank you for your patience. You've had a good discussions that you've been able to sit in tonight. Those of you, I think everyone now, Ed's been, he's joined us on a few of our meetings here, and want to ask if anybody has any questions for Ed. Tell him the good, the bad, the ugly, or if he wants to say anything to the commission. It's open floor.
I'm not sure that I have much to add to the conversation. I mean, I'm pretty known overall, pretty open book. At least I tried.
Okay. Any commissioners have any questions?
No questions. Just thanks for stepping up, and we look forward to working with you.
Nope, you haven't voted yet.
Right. There you go, Andrew.
Getting ahead of yourself.
Are we looking for a motion, perhaps?
We are.
So I will make a motion that we recommend to the select board the appointment of Edward Fultz to the Conservation Commission for the upcoming term.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
All right, roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase Carpenter guy.
and myself, I. It is unanimous.
Welcome, Ed. Amy will be in touch with you to let you know the next process and all those good things of getting sworn in and all that as well. Okay.
All right.
Now we're gonna go back to requests for certificates of compliance. The first is 27 Grimes Lane, Mass DEP 204-0970. Amy, are we good with that
Which,
one?
as it turned out, actually is not quite ready. So we
Okay.
can give
We're
that a
gonna move on
pass.
to the next one, request for certificate of compliance, 23 Grimes Lane, Mass DEP 204-0941.
That has been built as permitted and is stable.
Okay, great. Do we have a motion to accept the certificate of compliance or issue?
Make a motion to accept the certificate of compliance for 23 Grimes Lane. MADEP number 204-0941.
I second.
Roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase Carpenter guy.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay, great. One more, certificate of compliance, New England Power Company soil boring, Mass DEP -204-0948. Amy, how's that one going?
So from what we, and by we, I mean mostly Tim, has been able to see, because part of it was flooded, it is all stabilized. They did what they said they were going to do. They did not do that one stream crossing that was of concern. So I do, and we've been watching it during construction too. So I believe it's all set.
It's been pretty cool to watch. Okay, do we have a motion?
Or I'll make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for New England Power Company soil boring, Mass DP number 2040948.
Thank you, Kyle. Do we have a second?
Second,
A second.
Okay, roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Fairbank, aye.
and myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, that carries. The next is discussion on cabin 20 at Caliva. Is anyone here to speak to that?
No, she is in talks with landscape architects or whatever to get her a plan pulled together. So she has to be continued.
Okay, so we'll continue that to the 8th. The next is 49 Mattawanaki tree removal discussion.
I think Dave is back.
Hi. Last meeting, we presented a request to remove 2 trees that were identified as hazardous by certified arborist. And we were, I guess, asked to come back with a plan for tree replacement and a description of how we would remove the stump for the large oak tree in a way that wouldn't cause problems. And so we've provided those in a update to our request. And we also provided a narrative about how this whole process developed and the fact that we really didn't want to remove the trees, but it seemed like we don't really have a choice because it seems like they're pretty risky. We also provided a description of the vegetation that we planted in the last year and a half on the site, just as a point of reference for the work. And there's still an area that was part of the original order of conditions as an area that's going to be planted with pollinator plants that we haven't put in yet, but they're shown on the plot plan.
Commissioners have any questions? Amy, any questions?
No, I assume this would maybe best be handled as a red line change to 204901 or some sort of separate approval as a minor project approval for safety hazard trees, or I'm not quite sure.
I think that's what we had discussed, if the commissioners feel comfortable with that.
I don't mind the mechanism. I would like to make sure we spend a minute to look at and talk about the replanting plan.
Yeah. Amy, have you reviewed that, or is there a plan for that?
Do you have that, Dave, or do you want me to try to pull it up?
Can you put it up? I mean, I have it, but I'm not sure how to. No, I have it on a different computer.
I'm looking at it right now, Amy, if you can't find it quickly.
Okay, I got it here.
I guess my comments are that I want to talk about both the locations and the species, given that we're removing particularly the large oak that's providing a lot of shade, that we have an interest in those shade trees along the shorelines.
Right, so there are 10 other oaks that are still on the lot, which will be providing a lot of shade.
Dave, do you want to
shown
talk about
on the next 2 pages.
Okay.
Sorry, on the previous 2 pages. There are the there are the remaining oaks. And there's a picture too of them next. Yeah. the arrows show where we're taking out the trees.
I guess my point is this, that you say that there's a lot of oak trees that are continuing to provide shade, but almost none of those are as proximal to the lake as the tree that we're removing. And it's not a lot, but the proposed replacement tree is farther away from the lake in an area that's already getting some shade. I'm going to tell you, this looks a lot to me like, I understand you're saying that you wanted to remove it for safety reasons. Looks a lot like safety reasons are a secondary issue here, and it's inconvenient given that the replacement tree is not going back in the same location.
No, we really would like to keep that tree there. We like the shade that it provides to the house. We had 4 trees there that we said had to be, we said needed to be kept in place, and for various reasons they had to go, and this is the last one. We really wanted to keep it. The problem with putting so this tree that's coming out here now, at some point in the distant past was on a hill, and on the lot stone walls were put in place, terraces were put in place, and the trees, the roots are it's difficult to have the trees and the walls in place. So we're putting the tree about 20 feet away in a place where there aren't going to be any walls.
I understand that, but the passive construction of what you just said is like the walls appeared. That's not the case. These walls were put in as a construction project that killed the trees that were providing the shade, and the result is now we're installing mats to deal with algae because there's so much sunlight there. This is a real, like, if you give a mouse a cookie kind of problem. And the more we pull back shade from the banks, the more we're going to have algae problems. Like, it's the idea that this replanting is further pulling shade trees back from the bank is very, very troubling.
We could, so you would like a taller tree, is that it?
Well, that's the other issue. I don't think replacing an oak tree of this size, what was it, 20 some odd inches, with potentially an apple tree is that's not a like for like replacement.
Well,
So you at one point you said that none of the remaining trees are nearly as close to the water as the one we're taking out, and that's not true. At least 3 or 4 of them are closer to the water. If you go back to the
let's make the assumption that we're keeping the roots in, which we discussed at the last meeting, so that we're going to cut them flush and leave those roots intact. Where are we going to find a suitable kind of larger replacement? Can we do it in the area that is noted on the plan? So if it's not going to be an apple tree, do we want to put a few more, or what would the commission like?
What did the arborist say was wrong with the tree?
The bottom of the tree has has got rotten wood in this section, that picture right there.
Yeah.
There's a opening between the main roots and the tree, and it's rotten halfway through the diameter, and it's also rotten going up into the tree. And it has this picture here. It has a split with between large branches, which they say is continuing down. It looks the fissure in the bark is indicative, they say, of crack growing inside the tree between the 2 branches. Chase, just to be clear, we really did not want to remove this tree. We like the shade. We don't want it to be out of there. We brought the I don't know if you read the narrative or not, but we brought the arborist in with the specific need to find out how to put the wall around it in a way that would not endanger the tree and that would make sure that it would be preserved. We were going to make it further a large distance away from the tree. We were going to lower it so that the grade would be just at whatever the appropriate level was to keep the roots healthy. And we were working, that was the intent, to find out how to put the wall around it in a way that would preserve the tree. And he said, this is a hazard.
Okay, commissioners, let's offer some suggestions here to Dave.
My suggestions are, I'd like to see more trees as replacement. I typically look for 3-to-1 replacement ratios for mature trees. I'd like to see the interest that the commission has in providing shade to the resource area represented in the replanting plan. And I don't think replacing a mature oak with much smaller species is going to achieve either of those objectives.
So just there is not a lot of shade to the I mean the tree is north of the lake, so most of the day there's no shade from the tree into the lake.
How is the soil there? I'm concerned with some of the slopes in the soil that you're going to have to be careful what trees you put in there to really have a chance of surviving.
Why?
Like, aren't you on your soils there? I'm assuming with the slope, we're going to have to really find some good soils and places to put some trees. Because you're not going to be able to go in that exact area where that tree is coming out. Because we're keeping the root structure there.
Well, I mean, I'd like to discuss that once we get done with this. We would like to take the stump out. I mean, I don't know whether
we discussed that at the last meeting, and the commission members were rather concerned with that because of the potential erosion as well.
Right. So this is quite a ways away from the water. It's not on the water. It has 12 feet of horizontal turf between the stump and another barrier wall between it and the beach. And so and once the stump is, if we can remove the stump, once it's removed, there'll be another wall that's, I mean, the wall that we're replacing will be preventing any erosion there. So
I think we have to remember, with all due regard, that erosion just doesn't happen on the surface. It can undermine where the roots were as well. So we do have, Peter has his hand up. So Peter, I'm going to allow you, let's see if I can do this. Peter, you have a question? Go ahead. You're on mute.
Could you go to the picture lower? There's a few of them that they skip by really fast that shows the base of the trees.
The one that's in question.
All right, well, there's that one there. Well, hang on now. Is that one of the trees that's coming down further up, if you would? Just if you go slow on all of them.
Yeah, I think that's the same tree base and top that has the split.
Okay, is that the very first tree?
There's
is there a picture above that? Okay, stop there. All right, so this is one of the trees you intend to remove?
Yes.
And the reason being is because that retaining wall that you're building there is Now, the roots are now dying from that?
No, that's not the reason. The roots are fine. The tree has rotten wood down at the bottom between the roots, and the up at the first place where the branches split, the tree itself is splitting.
The base of
Peter,
that tree.
Peter, they did submit, they had an arborist go out, and there is in the report with this filing, the comments from the arborist on the 2 trees that deemed them hazards.
Okay, so, but that tree in particular is the one that has the base of it is missing, has the hole in it, along with the split at the top of it.
Right.
That one in particular. There, so that tree is the same tree you just showed me.
Right.
Okay, could you go further down? And there it is again, same tree?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and can you go lower are there more pictures?
This is a second tree.
Okay, a little further down, that one. And
The one in the middle is the second
all right. That's a second tree with all the.
Yeah, with the hole in it. Yep.
Okay. And then.
This is the hole on one side. And this is another hole on the other side. And the wood inside is, you can push a rod all the way through.
All right, is there any more pictures of that's it?
That's the pictures of the trees that we're removing.
The ones that are remaining is the bottom picture. Correct.
Okay. All right, could you go up to the very top picture again, just for. All right, so there's the one that's by that one there. Huh. And how many walls are being built there? Is there 3 or 4?
We're just replacing walls that were already there.
Yeah, these aren't new, these are replacements.
Those walls are replacement walls?
Correct. Yeah, they're all just replacement walls.
Huh. Then not like for 60 years, I never recalled the wall being down on the waterfront, but. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you for your
You've
question.
addressed my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, yep. Okay, commissioners, we got to keep going. What are your thoughts? Do we want to ask some of the commissioners to do a site walk and come up with what they think is plantings? Ask Amy to help with that. What are your thoughts?
I'd be happy to go out there and do a sidewalk, Sarah. I mean, certainly I think the most comments here.
Okay. All right. So with that said, my suggestion would be is we table this discussion until August 8th and hope that Chase, you can coordinate and go out, and on the day that you coordinate, if you could just let us know if anyone else can go out, that would be advisable. Dave?
I'll go as well, Chase.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. So you'd be coordinating with us so we can be there to talk with you?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yes.
Okay. And Amy has my number?
Yeah, Dave, are you still out of town or are you back?
We're back. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So we will table this discussion until the 8th.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Next, Amy, webpage reviews. Took me a while to navigate the webpage tonight.
Yeah.
I
got nothing new right now.
I don't want to make them.
I think unless someone's got something to say, we can table this.
Okay.
I don't have anything nice to say.
I agree. Okay. Cloverdale invasive species management, Phragmites.
Nobody likes change.
Oh, look at the pictures. They're not even slated right.
Well, we'll get the pictures back. They were doing some revisions to the management plan, which I only just got in this afternoon, so I haven't sent it around to you. So I'll send it around. And I think that, as I mentioned last time, we just need to have the discussion about whether or not to move forward with the Phragmites control.
Okay. Next is Cloverdale hazard trees.
Again, that's just there in case I had an update. There is no update. We had a site walk, was it last week? I think with Steve Yonley, who just kind of showed us generally where the trees are that are for removal. They're getting an estimate on what the removal would cost, and maybe looking into another arborist to see what the conditions are. And
Are those primarily pine trees?
I think they're almost all pine trees.
Yeah, I think they were mostly all pine trees. Yeah.
Okay.
Small pine trees and some really big pine trees.
Yeah.
White pine.
Some very big ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Widowmakers. Okay. Tree policy discussions. Can we table that for Kyle?
Yeah, that's something, but I think that I'm going to reach out to Matt, because 95 is going to be a problem. I think that's, you know, they're trying to get out of the buffer. There's a chance that once we approve that NRAD, that we don't see them again, right? Is that based on the plan I saw today?
Depending on where the lines end up,
You're
their
right.
goal
I mean, I
was
guess-
not to come back.
Well, yeah, and that's so. Unless Matt's aware of this or anybody else is aware, this is kind of a one-shot deal, or our only chance to speak up about it. So I'm going to reach out to Matt about that and make sure he's aware.
That would be great. We'd appreciate that. Lakeshore compliance guidance discussion. Michael, I think that's you.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to get into it, but I will this week.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Great.
this is what I've laid out, which is nowhere near the final product. But the left-hand panel, or I'm sorry, the right-hand panel would be the cover. The left-hand panel would be what you first see when it opens, and the middle panel there is the back. So just kind of what they are, why they're protected, what is regulated, and then a little more detail on wetlands protection and Chapter 91 stuff.
Okay. That's
And
great.
I think the biggest thing, if we really are going to do a mailing of this, is this piece right here.
Yeah. So we can bold that. Okay. That looks great.
And what are we going to say there? Even if it's a sentence, what are we going to say there?
Okay. I look forward to Michael and yours edits. Okay. Kyle, Water Department, King Street.
I noticed that Tree Masters is over at the new treatment system site.
Yes, I've met them out there, or not tree masters, but I met the guy who's in charge of it, and they got the erosion. They're putting up the erosion controls. They have to do some initial clearing so they can get out there. So I'm working with them on that. The erosion controls for the barn demo were in place, but they got to get the rest of the site up.
Okay. Yeah, those were not small clearing machines that they put out. They are the big, they got two big.
Okay, yeah, I'll go out and take a
Just
note.
want to make sure that, the correct trees are marked or whatever, they follow what we agreed on, because, we talked about leaving a bunch.
Yeah, and a different contractor who's doing the pipeline that's connecting all this is, I've carved out him some potential stockpile areas or where they can park equipment overnight on Harley. Was that 97?
That's what I was just kind of wondering with, when they're cutting those trees, Kyle, how far are they from resources? Should we have any concern with parking and oil and gas, or?
Yeah, I don't remember what we put in for conditions like that. If it was, pull everything back to the front of the site again, or
They're right up to the 50 foot, as I recall. And there is no overnight equipment storage in the buffer zone, but I'll go out and try to get hold of those guys
So if we can remind them, like, they need to in and out, especially with these
there have been a couple of
forms.
meetings, but I think once they get on the ground, there need to be more meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my suggestion was, where we have a lot of people working on the lakes and such, and I think it would be helpful where we have the DEP number posted on the street. I think that when we have someone working on any of these lakes or ponds, it should be in the order of conditions and knowledge that on their shorefront, they should post their DEP number. So
Yeah,
that
the last one or two have done that. That's
I think if we can memorialize that somehow and make it so it's standard practice.
Yeah.
That would be great. I think it'll help. He said, she said, and people would know whether they have a permit or not.
Can we just write we've got a list of standard conditions that we use.
Yeah,
Let's just add that to the list of standard conditions, that if you're on a water body, you have to display the sign on the water body as well.
Right.
It's got to be the easiest way to get it going, right?
Right. What about you know what I mean? Streams that you can paddle on.
Yeah, no, I'd say, what I might do is I'll put in a condition that is mostly a reminder to me and you guys about whether or not a second sign is needed, whether it's a water body or even a nearby trail, where the public is walking by.
Oh, that's a good one.
There might be need for more than one sign.
Right. Oh, I think that's a really good idea. Yep. Okay.
And maybe even, Amy, when you're writing that, give yourself some latitude to ask them to put up signs at the direction of the conservation agent. If partway through we find out that, we do want a sign over there.
Right.
Yeah. And certainly, especially on bigger projects, when we do a pre-application site walk or pre-construction site walk.
All righty.
Hey, Sarah, one more. I was wondering if Andrew had made any contact with Westford regarding that piece of land that was advertised off Powers Road.
The old Mary Shepherd slice.
Yeah. So Carl, a couple meetings ago, I had mentioned that I had mentioned it over in Westford, and they didn't really see it as a viable option just because of many of the private sites in between the two parcels, in between us rather, and that site. So they really didn't see it as something worth exploring, unfortunately, on their end at least. Because there is like the Vinebrook neighborhood and a few other sites that they just didn't see the viability of it, unfortunately.
Was that I thought it was closer to the horse farm.
It is. It's adjacent to the horse farm on the Littleton side.
I don't see how that impacts with the Vinebrook if we're trying to.
I think there might be
people to access the back property onto. Do you think the Vinebrook?
Does it abut Littleton land though? Littleton trails?
I don't think it does actually.
I don't think it does.
It's kind of, from what I understand, it's kind of like an island in between.
Well, it's landlocked.
Yeah, and Westford, when I did mention at the trust meeting, they did seem to believe that there was wooded Vinebrook property in between as well somehow. But
so I guess the question was, even if it's Vinebrook, the Vinebrook is in conservation, that area. The idea was to get people an access way, possibly.
Yeah, let's see here. So on Amy's map here, I'm trying to place.
I should love his mass mapper.
Mm-hmm.
See if this works. You guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's see here.
Here's Mary Shepherd.
The big riding arena is right there and it's behind it.
And then the parcel.
Was this the one for sale?
Was that it, Carl? Was it that one?
I don't know.
I think it's the one right where you are right now. It's the one that's adjacent to the horse farm. That one. Very wet.
But I guess
I'd have to double check. I don't know.
For some reason, I'm thinking it's one maybe a little closer to.
I had it bookmarked. Let me see if I still have it on my. I don't know if it's sold or not.
And actually, Andrew, it might be the next one up.
what, the big one?
No, Or if you
One
move
that
the
has
cursor
Neshoba
up to the
Brook.
next where it says something Brook, that
Yeah,
one.
it says Neshoba Brook in it. And
Mm.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, we can look back into that. All right.
Yeah, just, I don't know, it seems like something that either us or Westford should be paying attention to, that's all.
Right.
I get, yeah.
Yeah, Carl, it's definitely worth further investigation. But if it is next to the Vinebrook neighborhood there, that would make sense from what they were telling me. If that was the case, you would technically have to go through their territory essentially to get from the Emmett land over to this parcel, and then to Mary Shepherd through like an easement through that other parcel. But yeah, we'll have to check into it a little bit more just to see which parcel was on this map here.
So, I mean, I was just going by the description of it said they had an access to it, so, I don't know. Maybe there is no access to it.
They kind of say it is when I call them the realtor, and of course then I get on their list. The information, they never did.
Wilton Conservation Commission, my land in Westford.
See, I was having a, can you see this picture now?
Yeah, where's the stable?
Yeah, so I'm not even sure which direction this is looking, because this, to me,
I
I'm
don't
looking at- this is the rail, it's.
you're
I'm not
standing in
looking-
Littleton. Right?
Well, look where the ski area is. The
Yeah,
ski
right,
area is
that's-
directly adjacent from the horse farm.
Can you grab the lower right photo?
Yes.
So that one or the one above that, the yellow outline?
Oh.
Okay, I feel like we're like just searching. Okay.
Oh, yeah, so that, that's.
It's 9:38.
All
I
right,
would
no,
like to close the hearing at 9:40.
that's fine.
Carl, you have two minutes to put a bid on the property.
That wasn't my intent, but
Okay. All right, it is 9:38. I would like a motion to close the July 25th Littleton Conservation Commission 2023. Do I have a second?
Second. All right, roll call votes. Carl,
come over, guy.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Fairway guy.
and myself. It is unanimous.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.